All right. Welcome back, everybody. Week 3 of the NFL is in the books. Joining me are Frankie and Justin. Hope you guys are doing well. What should we start with today, Frankie? I'm thinking Vikings. How about the Vikings taking on the Texans? Any thoughts on that as we get into Week 3 of the NFL?
Well, like we all predicted, Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate. This is clearly something that all of us thought was going to happen at the beginning of the season. No, this is totally shocking. I had the Texans winning this game, even though I was impressed with Darnold the first 2 weeks. I thought for sure, all right, he's going up against a Super Bowl contender. He's going to slow down. No, the guy just keeps on playing great. What do you have? 4 touchdowns this week, and
Yep.
also credit to the Vikings defense and Brian Flores doing a fantastic job. You know, making sure rushing CJ Stroud, keeping him on the run the entire game and having him really struggle throughout. But the Vikings, man, they're definitely the surprise of the season so far. I never thought they'd be one of the teams being 3-0, but Darnold really has stepped it up. Kevin O'Connell has done an amazing job because I watched this guy with the Jets and he was never this. So to see what O'Connell has done with Darnold, having him throw the ball this well, I mean, it helps when you have Justin Jefferson, on your team. But it's certainly a sight to behold there if you're a Vikings fan. Still don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender. Still probably need to see a little bit more. But so far, how can you not be impressed that the way this team is playing and especially the way this offense has been thriving?
So, Justin, do you think they're a Super Bowl contender, or is it like fool's gold at this point?
Man, like this season is so weird, right?
It has
Everyone you
been a
think is
weird year.
yeah, it's like upside down land. But yeah, it's hard to say. That defense is for real. My question is Sam Darnold, and it does help to have a good line, uh, receivers to throw to. The run game, not quite there yet. Aaron Jones is a little sluggish because he's getting older, but he's been solid. I mean, he's a reliable vet to have on your team. So I wouldn't call them a Super Bowl contender yet, but it's hard to say that they're not, given that they're undefeated so far.
How's their team health? Because a lot of times I feel like the teams that start off hot, it's because they're healthy, and other teams are struggling. I haven't really been following the Vikings that close. Do they have any major injury concerns at this point, or is it just kind of like everybody's healthy and that's why they're playing well?
I mean, it's not really an injury thing. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are still pretty healthy, Rams aside, which is funny because the Rams, I guess we'll talk about them in a little bit, but they've got 2 receivers that are out, right? So it's not all about injuries. It's about scheme. It's about who you're playing, your schedule matchups, and just who's like in mid-season form early in the season. And sometimes what happens is you get good teams that haven't really found their stride yet. You see that kind of with the Chiefs as they struggle from week to
Mm-hmm.
week. And then they find their stride in the playoffs and they just go crazy, right? But Vikings are basically in midseason form. They're playing really well, dominating games that they probably shouldn't dominate. I mean, the Texans are a really good team, and they just completely demolished the Texans.
So let's talk about the Panthers. Andy Dalton had himself a weekend, Frankie. 319 yards, 3 touchdowns versus the Raiders. Any thoughts on that game? The Raiders.
There it is. My main takeaway from this game, and I know this probably shouldn't be because it should be about how good Andy Dalton was, and we should all be impressed with that. But wow, Bryce Young must be the worst quarterback in the history of this league because I think I saw the stat. I had to double check this. So apparently, Andy Dalton in the first half of that game threw as many touchdowns as Bryce Young has in the previous 10 games with Carolina. Woo, that is not a good sign. I mean, Bryce Young may have a future in the NFL because some coach out there, some offensive coordinator is going to be like, I can fix that guy.
Yeah.
So he may have a future in the NFL, but judging, it is only one game. But if this game is any indication, he certainly doesn't have any future with Carolina because just in the first drive, you could just tell that there was a confidence that Dalton has and he was able to make these guys play better that Bryce Young just does not have. Like whatever he had at Alabama, completely gone here with Carolina. It's sad to see because I was rooting for him, but it's been disappointing to watch. But yeah, great performance by Dalton there. That was certainly a surprise. And we'll see if the Raiders, Antonio Pierce talking about people may be making business decisions during that game. So I'm assuming that may be about Devontae Adams. We'll see if the Raiders are on the verge of a mutiny here. But Carolina, they are not going to be the worst team in the NFL, at least this year, at least for this week, as they get their first win, a much important first win for them.
So Bryce Young in his career, and this season he's 0-2, but for his career, 2-16 with 11 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Yikes! Is he a bust, Justin?
So, win losses, this from baseball. It's
Yeah.
really a
Depends on your
hard
team.
stat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's on a team that basically traded away all their best players, which, and then you draft a quarterback that you think is going to be pretty good, but he's undersized. You had C.J. Stroud available as well, who's been lighting it up pretty well for in the NFL, right? He doesn't have help. They don't have C-Mac anymore. They don't have DJ Moore. They traded away a bunch of draft picks. It has to go down as probably one of the worst trades in the NFL history, right? I mean, there's also been trades for like Ricky Williams, and there's been the Herschel Walker trade. Those are pretty bad, but they basically just mortgaged their present and their future for Bryce Young. And Bryce Young's finding out that when you're at Alabama and you've got all the best players on your team, it's way easier than when you're in the NFL and you've got one of the worst teams in the league overall. So some of it's not his fault, but it does show something that Andy Dalton was able to come in and just completely demolish the Raiders. Some of it might be the team kind of gave up on Bryce Young, not the coaches, but the team itself.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't playing for him. Could be a leadership thing. Could just be, hey, this guy sucks. Let's get somebody in there. It's not that bad. We want to win a game or two. But yeah, I wouldn't call him a bust yet, but when you draft the first guy, and the next quarterback is doing a much better, it's on its way for sure.
So one guy who's playing pretty well is Justin Fields. He is 3-0, speaking of wins and losses, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he threw for 245 yards and a touchdown versus the Chargers. Frankie, how you feeling about Justin Fields finding new life here with the Steelers?
It shows to me that no matter what Mike Tomlin promised Russell Wilson at the beginning of the year, no matter what Russell Wilson's injury status is, they can't go back to him. At least for now, they cannot go back to him. Justin Fields is playing like a legitimate QB1 for Pittsburgh. And we saw flashes of this with Chicago. I mean, he looks much better than he does in Chicago, mainly because he has a good football team around him and a good coaching staff and everything. But yeah, he just looks so much more improved, looks more confident out there. And you just can't ruin the energy and the momentum that this team has right now by going back to Russ. I mean, Russ can be, I don't know how Russ is going to take that, but right now you just have to stick with it. You have to stick with Fields. He's the hot hand right now. He's playing so well. The Steelers are one of the few teams that are 3-0, which I believe there's 5 3-0 teams out there. The Chiefs, the Bills, we'll talk about in a little bit, the Steelers, the Seahawks, and the Vikings, which is quite an eclectic group of 3-0 teams. But I didn't think the Steelers were going to be one of them, and a lot of that has to do with their incredible defense. T.J. Watt is making a defensive player of the year case. He and Hutchinson right now playing like the 2 best defensive players in the league. But Fields is certainly helping out, and he's playing great for them. And yeah, Tomlin should just until this falls off, just keep riding Justin Fields.
Justin, do you think the Steelers are a playoff team at this point, or is it again fool's gold, just getting a hot start from this QB, or is it, are they for real?
I think they're definitely a playoff contender. I don't know about Super Bowl contender. I don't think they have enough offensive weapons to do that. Now, Fields was showing promise in Chicago, like you said. I don't know why they gave up on him so soon. And then you go and draft Caleb Williams, who's struggling right now. He had a good game this past weekend, but Fields had 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year. That's not bad. His completion percentage was 61%, which you want a little better. But this year it's 73%. So he's really like getting smarter about taking the checkdowns, not trying to force things. It helps when you've got a team around you. Like again, it's important to have structure, stability. Mike Tomlin's been there forever, right? So he's got a system where he can actually. It's built to succeed, right? And the Bears have always kind of been a mess for the last 10 years or so. But yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be the guy in Pittsburgh for a while. Russ has still got some in him, but I think that he'll be fine. He'll be drying his tears with his money.
Let me ask you this about Russell Wilson. Now that he's pretty much lost the starting QB job here, does he make sense for the Dolphins?
Anyone makes sense for the Dolphins. I mean, honestly, they just signed Tyler Huntley. He would be better to option than Skylar Thompson. I really would hate to see them rush back Tua because they're panicking, because that's just the recipe for disaster there for both Tua and their future franchise quarterback.
You don't want to play with the guy's long-term health. Like there's no way.
Yeah, and I don't think they will. I think Mike McDaniel's a little bit better than that, but yeah, I mean, the Dolphins need something to get that offense going. I don't know if it's Russ. He'd be decent. I think he's gotten a little weird over the years. I think that teams, his players don't really respond to him as much anymore. Because before it was all talent. Right now it's like he's a weird dude. Plus it's the talent's not there as much. Right. So it's like with a quarterback, you really want somebody, as we saw in Carolina, that the players are going to respond to.
Right. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Packers here. Malik Willis picked up another win for Green Bay against the Titans. Frankie, how you feeling about the Packers' chances this year?
Another great coaching job. We talked about how Kevin O'Connell's doing a great job with potentially being a head coach of the year candidate.
I think we lost Frankie here. Do you want to pick up? We lost Frankie for just a second, losing his internet. All right, Justin, you want to take over, talk Packers for a second?
Yeah, it's interesting that they're able to do what they're doing without Jordan Love, because Jordan Love's going to be a great quarterback. So they bring in Malik Willis, who was, for all intents and purposes, a failure in Tennessee, and he's been serviceable. They haven't asked him to do too much. They changed the game plan to cater around Willis's deficiencies and his strengths, but it's like the coaching job there, like Frankie was mentioning, is phenomenal. They're doing a really great job. It's a tough division. They're going to have some real competition there because, again, they're with the Vikings. They've got the Lions, so that division is looking stacked. Yeah. I don't know that they come out of it this year as a playoff team. Maybe you get 3 teams into the playoffs, but it's going to be tough.
So, all right, well, looks like we got Frankie back here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the 49ers blowing a 10-point lead to the Rams real quick, and then we'll move on to the Jets. So, Frankie, 49ers now 1-2. Are they starting to panic out there in San Francisco?
A little bit, but first of all, let me just say this. I was never 100% sold on Brock Purdy, weirdly, until this week. Because I've always figured, all right, he's okay, but maybe he just has a good team around him. This week, even though in a loss, I was like, never mind. This guy is a great quarterback. Because you had no McCaffrey, no Kittle, no Samuel, and he still put up massive numbers, throwing 3 touchdowns to Juwan Jennings. So this was not his fault. It was the Niners' defense and secondary, which really struggled in this game. That's why they lost. And, yeah, is it over for them? No, of course not, because you have a team with this talent. I think they'll be okay. But yeah, it's major concern here for the Niners. Two tough losses in a row, and who would have thought that 2 of the 3 or 4 contenders heading into the year, I feel like 2 of the 4 best teams, the Niners and the Ravens, would both be 1-2. And then you look at a team like the Bengals, they're 0-3. You look at Jacksonville, 0-3. A lot of surprises, and not in the good way in the NFL to start this season.
Justin, do you concur that there's a little bit of panic happening out there out west?
Maybe. I don't think it's never great to blow a lead like that, especially to a shorthanded Rams team, right? Matt Stafford showed off another great comeback victory. Underrated quarterback, really. What's interesting to me is you see Juwan Jennings just go completely bonkers in this game. And this is after Brandon Ayuk signs this massive contract extension. He held out. He was whining about his contract, and then the Niners rewarded him. And, he's been okay, but if you got a guy like Juwan Jennings sitting there waiting to, go off, let him go, man.
Yeah.
Spend some money on that defense, right? Shore that up. I mean, they're still missing Dre Greenlaw, who had that Achilles injury last year, so that's a big loss. But, they're still one of the best defenses, and to let the Rams just march down the field. Now, you mentioned Brock Purdy being a great quarterback, and I agree, he's really good. But he could not get drives sustained in the end of the game that would have helped run out that clock and help his defense a little bit. They kept giving the ball right back to the Rams. So you got to take care of the ball. You got to win the time of possession in those situations. And that's not what happened. So panic, maybe. That is a division rival. So that does put you down in the division. But I think they're going to be okay in the long run.
All right, let's talk Jets. Aaron Rodgers finally looked like himself. I watched a little bit of that game. 2 touchdowns, do the Jets finally have a real QB there, Frankie?
I mean, it's hard to say that they don't. First of all, shout out to my cousin who went to that game, and he was talking about the atmosphere. Like, people were going absolutely nuts in MetLife Stadium, and for good reason. As we mentioned, when was the last time they had? I can't remember. I'm trying to think of the last time I was this excited by Jets quarterback, and it was probably like the first year of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because since then it was Wilson, it was Darnold, Fitz magic, and again that only lasted like 10, 11 games, and then he fell down the stretch and then had the terrible second season. So there's just so many, I don't even want to go into the litany of failure at the Jets with the quarterback position. But in this game, he did not look, the most important thing about Rodgers, he did not look like a guy who was 40 years old coming off an Achilles surgery. He looked like vintage Rodgers. Say what you want about Aaron Rodgers, the scientist, Aaron Rodgers, the doctor, Aaron Rodgers, the person, say anything you want about him. It doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, period. And watching him throw the football is a thing of beauty. That third touchdown, the one to Wilson, I mean, the accuracy that he had to have in throwing it right there, having him catch that, it was special to see. So that was a great win there for the Jets. It was great seeing, as I mentioned, Garrett Wilson score his first touchdown. It was great seeing the Jets defensive line just wreak havoc on that poor Patriots offensive line. And I feel so bad for Jacoby Brissett. He's clearly just a sacrificial lamb out there to make sure that, he's just there to make sure that Drake May doesn't get killed by that O-line, because that's what will happen. It'll be a David Carr situation with Drake May behind that Patriots offensive line. But the Jets did what they needed to do in that game, and it was just a great momentum out there, great energy, and a terrific win. And the Jets are 2-1, and especially now with the Dolphins and their struggles at the QB position, it's hard not to see this team in the playoffs and maybe even contend for an AFC East title. I don't know. I mean, they're clearly the second best team in the AFC East, but there's no reason to think that they won't make the playoffs, especially with the talent at their disposal.
The list of quarterbacks for the Jets over the years, I'm just looking at it right now. It's bringing back some memories. Mark Sanchez, the Sanchez. Geno Smith, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh McCown, forgot about him. So, I mean, going all the way back to
Darnold.
Testaverde.
Testaverde was good in New York, though. He was
good.
Clemens.
I remember watching when Boomer Esiason was the quarterback back in the early 90s. But
that was the Bengals.
No, he was with the Jets from 93 through 95.
Yeah, he played. It was towards the end of his career, but he's the Bengals guy. Ken O'Brien, way back.
87
Richard
through
Todd.
89. Yeah. Actually, Ken O'Brien was 85 through 91, so he was there a while.
Yeah, he was like the last time they had a stable, decent quarterback outside of Testaverde, right? I mean, they're another team that just can't seem to find the right guy, and they're also another team where like sometimes your guy goes off and has success elsewhere, and you see that with Sam Darnold, and probably I think Zach Wilson, once he gets a chance to play, is going to do fine in Denver too.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the blowout of this Patriots team?
Yeah, I actually thought it was going to be reverse. I thought the Jets were going to struggle to score again. I thought the Patriots defense was going to be good enough, and the offense was just going to do just enough. I thought Stevenson was going to run all over the Jets, but that line, it shows how important an offensive line is in this league, and they just kept letting Will McDonald in, kept letting the guys live in the backfield for the Jets, and then Rodgers, when you watched him play, it was like he had never aged. He was moving so well. He was playing lights out, and I don't know if he's back or if it was him hitting the ayahuasca really hard before the game.
Yeah, the hydrochloroquine or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, he was doing something. I mean, maybe he ate his Wheaties. But yeah, he has the talent around him. I mean, Garrett Wilson is one of the best receivers in the NFL, and he finally has somebody to give him the ball.
Yeah.
Allen Lazard has been playing great. They've got two dynamic running backs. Like, you never expected Braylon Allen to come out and be this good. And watching him play, it was like, man, this guy's going to be good. And they might not even need to keep Breece Hall. They might not have to pay him when it comes time to pay him, provided he stays healthy, right? So, I think the Jets definitely are the second best team in the AFC East, especially now with Tua out. The Dolphins kind of in shambles. And, I thought the Pats were going to be the worst team in the league. They started out 2-0 or whatever. Like I said, weird NFL season, or 1-1 rather. It's weird NFL season, right? So, but yeah, I do think the Jets are the second best team.
Let's talk a little bit about the Giants. They recovered from a tough loss with the absence of a backup kicker, and they flushed the Browns 21-15. Let's start off with you, Justin. Any thoughts on the Giants' victory?
Well, Daniel Jones, lights out. Looking like Daniel Jones that we thought was going to be Daniel Jones when he got paid. Took care of the ball, great completion percentage, finding real chemistry with Malik Neighbors, who's going to be an outstanding player. So, I mean, that game kind of – it didn't really silence Giants fans because they can't be silenced. Unsilenceable Giants fans. But he definitely showed that he's got what it takes to maybe help this team win a few games. The running game showed up a bit against a Browns defense that's actually not that bad. Luckily they were playing a quarterback that's absolutely worse than Daniel Jones, so he coughed the ball up twice for them to help them out a bit. But yeah, I mean the Giants really played well. Hopefully they can carry that over to the next week.
Frankie, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I am not the biggest Daniel Jones fan, but I will give him credit. He's played
Really?
well in the last two games.
I thought you were
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I mean, the way you sounded these past few weeks, it sounded like you were like
super fan.
Yeah, president of the Daniel Jones fan club. But yeah, he's played well the last few weeks, and also yes, Malik Neighbors. It's not exactly Odell because I don't know if I'll ever feel the way I feel about a Giants receiver that I did Odell back in 2014, which I mean when he took the league over by storm, but it's feeling kind of similar. He's just making these great, terrific catches. He seems like he's a veteran already with some of the great catches that he's made. And credit to the Giants defense for forcing the Browns to turn the ball over a few times. That was a great win for the Giants because they started off when that game starts off as bad as it does. When you fumble the kickoff and then the Browns immediately go downfield for a touchdown and you're already down 7 and it's 11 seconds in. A lot of Giants fans were ready to just say, all right, well, game over, season over. But this team fought back. They played well, and they got the win. So credit to this team, credit to Dable and everybody for fighting and getting that victory. And the Giants it's crazy to think that they're a play or two away from being 2-1, but they're 1-2, and now they get ready for a big game against their division rivals, the Cowboys, who are floundering a little bit on Thursday night.
Let's talk about the Bills. They are 3-0, and they played really, really well last night. Justin, you want to take this one? You want to talk a little bit about the Bills' dominant performance, 47-10 over the Jacksonville Jaguars?
So out of all the teams we've said, are they the best team in the league? They're Super Bowl contenders. This one has been the team that has actually delivered so far.
They look legit.
Right. I mean, like no other team has really been doing what the Bills have. They've been dominating out the gate. Josh Allen has 4 touchdowns. They can run the ball. Their defense is playing really well. DeMar Hamlin's still alive. So, I mean, it's a good season so far for the Bills, and they are looking like so far the best team in the NFL, even better than the Chiefs because the Chiefs have not looked great, but they're still 3-0. But, yeah, I really like what the Bills have been doing, and I think they keep it up. They keep it going.
You think there's a little bit of a championship hangover or back-to-back championship hangover with the Chiefs, like where, you win a couple, maybe you're not quite as hungry, or is it more just not playing well, not gelling?
I mean, I think some of it is some of their key guys are getting old. Kelsey is definitely getting old.
Yeah.
He's
a little distracted with his
off
the
thing is
field
really
stuff.
just weighing on him,
Yeah.
He's like, it's looking forward to his lifetime of billions and billions of dollars. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Last year the Chiefs were kind of doing this too. They were like not really lighting it up in the regular season, and then the postseason they turned it on. So maybe they'll be doing a repeat of that this year. Because last year I was thinking the same thing about it. Like, man, they don't look that good this year. Maybe they don't repeat. But we'll see. But now the Bills look a lot more ready to take on all comers. So it might not be the Chiefs' year this year.
So, Frankie, any thoughts on the Bills and that performance last night?
Before the year, I don't get a lot of predictions normally, right? If you follow my NFL picks, you know that I have a tendency to not usually be accurate. But I did say before the year that I thought Josh Allen would be MVP. And boy, so far through 3 games, he's proven me right. Now, it's a long season, but he's been, to me, even better than Darnold or anyone else. He's been the best quarterback in the league. And so, yeah, and great story for DeMar Hamlin as well. I know people like to make jokes about him because he's not that great of a player and everything, but that interception on Monday Night Football, that was a special moment there. And, yeah, Jacksonville is in a world of trouble.
So Josh Allen in the past has been thrown into coverage a lot. Does it seem like he's maybe learned a little bit from that and maybe being a little bit more cautious, or has he just been a little bit luckier so far?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. But I mean, he's still throwing. He's always been accurate, so he's still throwing those great balls. He's rarely made a mistake. I feel like this year, the last 10 quarters of Bills football has been near perfect. After the first half struggles they had against the Cardinals, they were dominant in the second half against Arizona. They were dominant for 4 quarters against Miami, and they were dominant for 4 quarters against Jacksonville. So they're making very few mistakes, and they're just completely dominant on every side of the ball. And I agree with you, Justin. To me, right now, they're the best team in the NFL, even better than the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs eventually will get better because they're the Chiefs, and we've seen them before, just like last year, start off slow and then they get hot near the end. So, and I'm not saying the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl, but right now, if you're judging all the teams, to me, they are by far the most complete team, the best team. They've played the best overall throughout the first 3 weeks of the season.
And because Justin was late to the recording, I am now late for a meeting. So we're going to go ahead and get to players of the week. I'm going to start it off. Kyren Williams, 116 total yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. Brilliant performance. Frankie, who you got as your player of the week?
Well, my apologies to Saquon Barkley because it was going to be him. And then at the last second, after the way he played last night, how do you not give it to Josh Allen, 263 yards and 4 passing touchdowns as the Bills move to 3-0 against Jacksonville?
All right, Justin, who's your guy?
Juwan Jennings, man. I mean, dude comes from out of nowhere. Is filling in for Deebo Samuel. Catches 12 balls, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then makes the Niners kind of think, man, why did we spend all that money on Ayuk?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the key matchups for next week. So we got Bills, Ravens, we got Cowboys, Giants, we got Seahawks, Lions. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to? I'll start with you, Frankie.
No, those are kind of the main games that I'd focus on. I am really focused on Bills Ravens because Bills have a chance now going 4-0. Baltimore is, a loss here could really be devastating to them. I mean, how many teams have gone 1-3 and made the postseason? So this is kind of a must-win game for them. But yeah, this is a Sunday night primetime matchup. It's going to be very exciting to see 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league. Probably second and third. I have Lamar second, Allen third in terms of just overall talent. Mahomes obviously number 1. So it's going to be fun seeing those 2 guys go at it on Sunday Night Football.
Frankie, Justin, who's your pick for the Bills-Ravens game?
Man, that's, it's tough because, like, you got to, you're looking at the records, right? And how the Bills have been playing. I think the Bills pull it out still. Ravens have actually not been playing that bad. It's just they haven't been able to translate that into wins. And I don't think their defense is where it needs to be to hold the Bills' offense in check. So I think that the Bills are going to squeak it out. I don't think they're going to dominate the game like they've been doing, but I do think they win the game.
Nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, reminder to like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will be back next Tuesday. I'm sure we'll have the 2-minute drill from Justin. We'll have a couple of breakout clips over the next week or so, but subscribe to the channel. It's free, and, it could save your life one day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next